Hello and welcome to our first science lesson for our new topic this term. This topic is going to be looking at animals, including humans, and we're going to cover lots of different aspects around that. First question that we're going to be looking at to start off with is, what do animals need to eat to stay healthy? And our learning objective for this lesson is to match food types to different animals and identify different types of food. We're going to be thinking about the different food that different animals might be eating. We're going to be thinking about how and why they might find that type of food, and then looking at the different food types and why those particular animals might need certain types of food. We're also going to be thinking about the importance of why animals need to eat. We're going to be considering how important it is that we have the right balance of food in the next lesson as well. So let's start off by thinking about our first question. Here is our first question. Why do animals need to eat? I want you to have a think about this question. It might seem quite obvious, but actually the more you think about it, the more different answers that you might be able to come up with. So pause the video and spend a couple of minutes thinking about this question and the different answers that you might be able to come up with. Here are some suggestions. You may have come up with some different answers, but we've come up with energy. So animals need to eat in order to have energy. To survive, most animals are not able to survive for a long period of time, certainly even a short period of time, without eating. Linking to energy, the fact that animals have to move. Quite often animals might have to move in order to catch food, in order to be able to eat, but also in order to be able to perhaps avoid being eaten as well. And the last one is enjoyment. It might be that some animals eat just because they enjoy the taste of different food. If you think about ourselves as humans and the fact that we're obviously mammals and humans, and the fact that we might enjoy certain types of food and select certain food that we enjoy because it tastes nicer. So here we've got a little bit of a quiz for you. I have got 6 answers hidden, and you need to see if you can guess what the answers might be. The question is, what do different animals eat? As I said, there are 6 different answers, and you need to see if you can guess what the top answer is. You may obviously come up with an answer that is not on my list. It may still be a valid answer, but these are the top 6 that I thought were the most important. So pause the video here, see if you can play this with one of your grown-ups as well and see if you can guess more than they do, and we'll have a look at the top answers shortly. So here are the answers that I came up with as top 6. Number 1 I put as meat. If you're thinking about the different types of animals that exist that are carnivores, that eat other animals and that are meat eaters, then that is probably going to be the majority of animals that you might have typically been able to think of. That doesn't necessarily mean that the majority of animals are actually carnivores, but it might have been some of the ones that you thought of, like lions and even indeed humans, for example. The second one is plants. Now, a lot of animals eat plants, such as rabbits that eat grass. You might be thinking of a giraffe or an elephant that eats leaves and things from trees, and they are called herbivores. Number 3 is insects. If you think of animals that don't necessarily eat plants but eat insects, you might be thinking of things like spiders or an anteater perhaps. Number 4, other animals. Now, I've put this one in, although it may be covered by meat and insects. I thought that it might be one of the answers that you might come up with. that might be instead of those ones, so I've included that as well, although it is, as I say, the same as meat and insects. Number 5, I've put this one in. Even though it's not necessarily a food source, it is an important part of the majority of different animals' diet, and that is water. We'll look a little bit more at water later on when we look at our healthy diet food plate. And the last one is bacteria. There are some animals, some organisms that will feed on and eat bacteria. If you think about things like worms that eat the minerals and nutrients and small bacteria in the soil. So there are a few different examples of the different types of food that other animals might eat. When we're thinking about animals eating other animals or animals eating plants and trees, what we need to think about is the energy that exists within that food chain. Everything starts with the energy from the sun, called solar energy. As that is absorbed into plants, they then produce their own energy. Now that's really important because they are the only type of living organism that is able to do that. Animals can't generate their own energy, and they rely on the energy that they consume, that they eat, in order to generate their own energy. So these trees and plants and flowers and leaves are called producers. They're then eaten by things called primary consumers. They're herbivores, things like cows and rabbits, for example. And as they eat some of the food, some of the grass, some of the flowers and leaves, they absorb some of the energy into their own bodies from the plants. That stays in the food chain and goes up throughout the other animals that might eat them. So the secondary consumers that are small carnivores might be a snake. Now, I'm not suggesting that the snake might eat the cow. I'm more suggesting the snake might eat the rabbit. As humans, for example, we might be a secondary consumer of a cow if we eat beef. And that flow of energy in the system, as you can see in the red on our graph here, you can see that that energy is consumed by the snake. Above that, you've then got a bird of prey that might in turn then consume the snake, and that's called a tertiary consumer, large carnivore. And again, that consumes some of the energy and it flows through the system. Now we can represent that food chain by using a slightly easier diagram, and I'm going to show that to you now. So here you've got a food chain. You've got the sun on the left hand side, which is the producer. Then you've got grass, which is the primary producer, a rabbit as a primary consumer, and a snake as a secondary consumer. You can see the arrows. Now the arrows are really important because they are flowing in the order in which the energy is consumed and stays in the food chain. So the sun is the energy flows to the grass where it generates its own energy using photosynthesis. The grass is then eaten by the rabbit and some of the energy goes into the rabbit from the grass. That then goes into the snake if a rabbit is eaten by the snake. So you can see that there is a flow of energy through this food chain. Now, obviously, at the end of this food chain, you might have another thing. So you might have the bird of prey that we looked at. And because a bird of prey is considered an apex predator, that means that nothing else is going to be able to or would typically eat or have the bird of prey as its food, then that would be the top of our food chain. That would be the top creature, the top animal. It is important to note that all animals need to eat to stay healthy. We've already discussed some of the reasons why animals need to eat and the fact that animals get their energy and their nutrition from the food they consume. So it is really important that animals eat the correct type of food that's going to help them survive, that's going to help them to be able to thrive in their natural environment. And this is what we're going to start looking at now as some different examples of different animals and the different foods that they might eat, and in particular the different types of food. Here you can see we've got an Eat Well guide, and on this we've got lots of different sections with lots of different types of food. You might be able to see some bananas on there, you might be able to see some potatoes, you might be able to see some milk, you might be able to see some butter, some water in the top right hand corner, you've got some nice chocolate in the bottom left hand corner, and you've also got some fish that you might be able to see as well. Obviously there's a lot more in there as well. Now, I said about the fact that chocolate is nice, but you will notice that that chocolate is sat outside of the plate, and there's a very important reason for that. On the plate that you can see, it's split into 5 different sections. Those sections represent the types of food that should be eaten across the day, and the amount that you can see shows how much of that food that you consume in a day should be a certain type. So for example, you can see that the 2 biggest ones there are the green and the yellow section. So the green one represents a variety of fruit and vegetables every day, and the recommendation is that you have 5 portions of each. On the yellow, you can see that you have got a mixture of different types of food, such as potatoes, bread, rice and potato, and these are called carbohydrates. Along the bottom, you have got some meat and other proteins in the pink section, and then in the blue section you have got some dairy and alternatives, things like yogurts and spreads and things. On the purple, you have got oils and spreads. So these contain specific fats that our body might need, but if you notice, the section that's purple is very, very small, and that means that actually our diet, for it to be healthy as humans, needs to only contain a small amount of that. Now, I said earlier about the chocolate being outside the plate. And here it's outside the plate because this is something that should be consumed less often and in smaller amounts. Now, the water is also outside of the plate, but the recommendation is that you drink 6 to 8 glasses of water every day. That's a lot of water for you to drink, and it's something that is really, really important that you keep yourself hydrated as much as possible. In order for animals to stay healthy, it's really important that this diet is balanced and that there is not too much of one type of food. We're going to have a little bit more of a look at that next week, but for now I want you to concentrate on those different types of food as broad topics. So your fruit and vegetables, your carbohydrates, your meat and other proteins, your dairy, and also your oils, spreads and fats, because that's going to help you with your next task. So here's your task for today. Having looked at those different types of food and had a look at some different reasons as to why different animals might eat types of food, you are going to have an assignment task on Teams to complete if you can access it. If you can't, the worksheet will be uploaded to the school website under our home learning tab if you can't. The first task is going to be to sort the pictures into which animal eats what. So you are going to have some predators, and you are also going to have some pictures of the food that they might eat. You're going to need to match them up and put them in the correct place. Take care with this because all the pictures are going to be jumbled up at the bottom and you need to click on them and move them into the correct box. You need to think about which animal might eat what type of food before you start thinking about the types of food that they're going to eat, which is going to be in the second part of the quiz. In the quiz, you're going to have 5 questions, and those 5 questions will test your knowledge on some of the things that you've done in the sorting activity and also some other information from this lesson. As always, if you have any problems, please ask your grown-up to get in contact with the school, and I look forward to seeing all of your work that you upload. Thank you very much for all of your hard work this week, and I look forward to seeing more of your fantastic home learning work next week. Have a fantastic weekend.